Good afternoon, Amador Valley community. This is Mr. Fey, principal of Amador Valley High School. At 7:57 p.m. on Sunday, March 17th, a 911 call was made by one of our custodians on duty, and the Livermore Pleasanton Fire Department was dispatched to our school on a report of smoke in the small gymnasium. Crews arrived and confirmed a structure fire and began working to put it out. A second alarm was given and more fire engines were dispatched, 13 in total, to help put out the blaze. These brave first responders were able to contain the fire in approximately 30 minutes. On behalf of our entire Don community, I want to thank these brave men and women for saving our school and for keeping the fire contained to only the small gymnasium. Many of you have seen pictures. In one corner of the gym, the floor, wall, and ceiling were blackened by the fire. We were fortunate that the 1920s construction techniques of this gymnasium put up its own fight to keep the fire from spreading, just long enough for firefighters to arrive and douse the flames. If that doesn't exemplify the spirit of being a Don, protect our school and never give up, I don't know what else does. We are fortunate that the fire was contained in the small gym only and not damaging any of the other connected areas, including the theater, the cafe, the girls' PE office, and the girls' locker room. All of these spaces remain undamaged by the fire. The cause of the fire is still under investigation, and I want to caution everyone from jumping to conclusions or speculating on any potential causes. We need to be patient and allow investigators to do their job. Once they determine their findings, they will let me know, and I will in turn let you and our community know what the cause was. Once the fire department put out the fire, cleanup and assessments needed to occur. At the time, district and school administrators, including myself, were on campus throughout the evening with the Livermore Pleasanton and Alameda County fire departments to assess the small gymnasium and walk the rest of campus to evaluate the safety of all areas of our school, with the intent to determine if the campus was safe for students and staff to be here. The fire marshal inspected the small gym roof, ceiling, walls, and floor. Afterwards, the team walked the remainder of the campus to determine if there was any other effect of the fire on any buildings other than the ones adjacent to the small gym. Staff asked the fire marshal multiple questions specific to our ability to hold school the following day. Based on those thorough inspections, the school was cleared to hold school as long as necessary precautions were taken related to the small gym and locker rooms, meaning we needed to barricade and isolate all access into the building by students. I want to repeat, a thorough inspection was made of the entire campus, including the small gymnasium, and it was determined there were no concerns. This included the absence of any toxic or hazardous materials in the air that could cause any health concerns, even for our students with pre-existing conditions. In consultation with district administrators and given the safety assurances provided to us by the Livermore Pleasanton Fire Department, Amador Valley administrators determined the results of the fire did not pose a risk to having students on campus. With the campus determined as safe, our next problem to tackle was the power. As a standard operating procedure, PG&E was instructed to cut power to the school to protect firefighters as they battled the fire. Since this was a simple turning off the switch, actually they removed large fuses from a panel which de-energized most of the school. We felt that once everything was done, it would be simple just to turn the switch back on. PG&E informed us that in order to turn the power back on, a building inspector would need to sign off on the plan to isolate and ensure the buildings affected by the fire would not receive power when the switch was thrown. Our electrician got to work, and before 1 a.m., he had the building isolated from the rest of the grid. At the same time, school and district administrators were receiving conflicting messages about who had jurisdiction to certify to PG&E that the power could be switched back on. The city inspector stated since we are a school, the state inspector would need to perform the certification to PG&E. When contacted, the CAL FIRE duty officer, he told us that the local city inspector has jurisdiction. With the electrical work already completed to isolate and de-energize the buildings affected by the fire, we felt that by contacting and informing the city inspector what the state told us, the certification to PG&E would resume To resume the power on the Amador Valley campus would be streamlined and would be able to occur by 9 a.m., which was just after the scheduled start of first period, maybe even sooner. With this information in our minds, the decision was made to not cancel school, as we had safety clearance from the fire marshal and we had a reasonable expectation of a timeline to get power back to the school as close as possible to the beginning of first period. At 7 a.m. on Monday morning, the city inspector was contacted and later arrived on campus. Unexpectedly, he was still insisting that this was not his jurisdiction. At some point during the morning, we realized we had access to our own inspector who could help make our argument about jurisdiction. Our inspector was summoned and arrived shortly after the city inspector, and they started squabbling, pointing their fingers, saying it was not my jurisdiction. We were able to convince them both that between the two of them, they needed to figure out a way to determine this, and at around 9 a.m., 30 minutes into first period, they came to an agreement on both certifying. At 9:30 a.m., I was notified that PG&E had been called, and they were dispatching personnel to turn on our power. It took them about 45 minutes to arrive, and then another 30 minutes to go through the certification process before they restored power to the school. Not so fast. With a facility this size, you can't just flip a switch and everything comes on at once. I was then told that the plan was to turn on each building one at a time. So, starting at 11 a.m., the A building became energized, then B, then C, around the campus, one by one, building by building. The power would get turned on and checked. Some of the buildings had residual alarm signals from the previous night, so a false alarm would sound. And then we would have to stop and go check it to make sure that this was in fact a false alarm, disconnect the alarm if necessary, and then move to the next building. It took almost an hour to go through these steps until finally, just before noon, all of our buildings were back up and running. This timeline would have been faster had the jurisdiction been understood by our city inspector, and he had just certified our plan to PG&E when he arrived at 8 a.m. Given the timeline above, we would have met our expectations of power being restored fully on campus by 9 or 9:30 a.m. The back and forth between the two inspectors was completely unexpected and was the cause for the delay in getting the power turned back on. Throughout the whole process, those 16 hours were one of the toughest in my career in education. Someone asked me what was the hardest thing to deal with during this ordeal. Up till now, it's been trying to convince our inspectors that their indecision was causing turmoil not only for our campus, but was negatively affecting you, our students and staff. Not being able to get them to understand it sooner was extremely frustrating. What was equally frustrating were the false rumors being spread on social media throughout this ordeal. All of our bathrooms were ordered open by me, except for the boys' bathroom that was vandalized. To my knowledge, there was no smoke in any of our classrooms. There was no gas leak or no hazardous chemicals and no hot spots or embers to start new fires. For why would our fire marshal clear the school if they even suspected these issues still existed? There was also an assumption, without coming out to look at the small gym, had burned down to the ground and you were going to be coming to school seeing a building reduced to rubble or an empty space filled with the charred remains of our beloved school. Neither of these are the case. While the fire damage was contained inside the building, the outside almost looks like nothing ever happened. We received less than 20 emails from parents and students questioning the decisions made by me regarding keeping school open. I understand over 1,300 people signed an online petition supporting closing school for the day. The reason for this message that I'm giving today is to let you know what was considered when making this decision to hold school. You also need to know that closing down school for a day is a big decision. Many of our parents rely on school because they work and cannot stay home from work at the last minute. Our instructional minutes are so tight that if the school was closed, we would have to come back to school by taking away one of your spring break days, or we could have added on a day of school after our planned May 31st graduation ceremony. All of these and many more factors played into this decision to not cancel school. I want you all to know that if the decision was made to keep the school open, it would have been with the assurances that you all would be safe by being here. The delay in getting power turned back on was unfortunate and also unexpected. Moving forward, cleanup has already begun in the girls' locker room and will continue into the small gymnasium. Our insurance company is assessing the damage and is formulating a plan with our district officials on what to do next regarding repairs to the facility. We are hopeful to get partial use of the building sooner rather than later, which includes the theater, the girls' locker room, and the North Cafe. No guarantees, but we are doing everything we can to get these spaces back for us to use. In the meantime, we have plans already in motion to adjust PE classes, AP testing, and many other activities that were planned to take place in the small gym. This is a huge disruption to our normal school operations. We must remember that we are Dons, we can adapt, we can conquer, and we won't give up. Our teachers and students continue to inspire me, and I am proud to be speaking to you today as your principal. When we learn more from the results of the fire investigation, I will do my best to get you that information. In the meantime, be good to one another, stay safe, and go Dons.